Hey everyone, Adam here. This video is our lore video, kind of explaining an intro to the campaign we're going to be seeing. So, we're starting in about 7 games into the beginning of these new characters. We wanted to do that so the characters had some sort of focus and we had a little bit of a story going on. I do have recordings from the former ones that I can share. That being said, the audio was garbage because I was using 2 mics and the echo gets really bad. So if you guys want that, let me know. But like I said, it's bad. But there's a little bit of backstory that you guys will want to know probably, just going in. So this is here to a little bit explain some of that. The stuff you should probably know from the last campaign is the last campaign started off, or its major thing was dealing with deep dwellers invading the surface, namely necropolitans, which are living undead people, and that had started a war with them invading the surface, and that's where we ended the last campaign. The last campaign and this campaign, there's a 9-year difference, and the war has been technically over for 3 years. So all of the characters we're bringing in were prisoners of war. So going into it, we have Taylor, who's playing Kit. Kit is a healer of Multal from the city of Sigil, who's obsessed with making things whole and making things beautiful in a way. Multal is very prevalent in what we've done so far, so that'll hopefully get explained a little bit as we go along. We also have Zeke, who is an air druid from the outskirts of Ostini. He was a hermit, so he's fairly awkward. Tanner's doing a good job of playing him. But that's the majority of what you need to know about Zeke. We have Atropos Belladonna, which you guys won't see. That was Nate's first character. He was a resistance fighter that was brought into the jail. When he was released, he kind of drove the city. That's where he's important. We'll get into that a little more as I tell you the story. Then we have Ace and Terry, who is Cole's and Cody's characters, respectively. They were pirates who, following a treasure map, ended up getting enslaved and then eventually being sold to necropolitans and ended up in the same jail. We have Bruce, who's played by Thielen. He's a ninja. His backstory is pretty mysterious. We might get into it later on. He also has a +10 to swag. You'll see. It's interesting. And then we have Willie. Willie is played by Cameron. He's a white tiefling tracker from the hills of Iran. That's the majority of story right now. I'm going to do individual character videos on all these guys, so you can actually see what the people playing them actually think of their characters. I think that'll be much better than what I can say, but that's going to come down the road a little bit. But getting into it, those are initial characters. Belladonna was the primary influence for them. He dragged them to Kalma, looking for resistance fighters to join up with. There they met Xander. Xander is a paladin of Multal who is there seeking aid. Multal is the primary god for Kit. That being said, there's a city named after Multal, so there's the city of Multal. That is on the outskirts of Vilrock. And Xander was from there, looking for someone to help him fight back basilisks that were invading the city. So the party went off with him. After about a week, they ended up in Multal. There they met a couple characters. There was Ezekiel, who is Xander's uncle, another paladin in Multal, and the leader of the Hammer and Stone Guild. More on that later. They haven't reached that point yet. But there was Lilith, who is an earth druid protecting the city from frost giants, but didn't seem to care much about the basilisks. there's Lazarus. My apologies. There's Lazarus, who's a water druid from the north of the city, who supplied the city with potions and things of that nature. And then there was Solomon, who ran the first temple of Moltal. Most of these characters were, well, Ezekiel was a full orc, Xander is a half-orc, Lilith was human, Solomon is a full orc, and Lazarus was a gnome. Willie found a preoccupation and an interest, to say the least, in Lilith, who was asking for a ruby for her to help the party. Willie eventually gained the ruby. Some hanky-panky happened. She joined the party, kind of. And while that was happening, Bruce was dealing with the presence of a dark god he accidentally prayed to. This god's name was Minoan. We'll get more into that. Bruce also encountered a small purple worm-like creature. That comes up in the second video, I think, so you'll see, but that is Bruce is carrying around a cocoon in a crate. But they initially investigate the basilisks, and they find a network of caves. One leads down to their nest that they wanted to prepare a little more for, and these caves were also attached to a lair of some Naga, which are snake people if you're not aware. The next night after this discovery, Dono went in by himself and presumably died. So, from there, Nate started playing a Dwarven war cleric of Zira named Murtaine. Murtaine's a very jovial sort, and that is who Nate is currently playing. Zira is a sapphire gargoyle god. Very simplistic type of a god. We'll probably get into that later. And if you want more details on some of these characters, let me know. But with Murtaine, they eventually went down into the basilisks to try and finish this as quickly as possible, because they did have this dark god to kind of deal with. And with Murtaine's help, Murtaine and Lilith and some Rakshasa that are tiger people that were helping them quite a bit and were aid from the Naga. They went down into the basilisk nest and started fighting their way through. Eventually they encountered the main nest, where a majority of the petrified people of the Naga city and Moltal had been contained and brought to. Fighting their way through the basilisk, Lilith separated from the party and ran ahead of them. They fought through the basilisks, and the basilisks ended up the only casualty was one of the three Rakshasa. When they followed Lilith, they found a summoning circle with a gnome named Methuselah. Past there, Lilith had Belladonna tied up, and she forces the party to do a couple things with different spells and whatnot, and Minoan gets summoned. Minoan then laughs at the party, kills Lilith, and starts talking about how he's going to summon the last 6 of his pantheon, and disappears. And that's where we're jumping in for the first episode. I know that leaves a lot out. Feel free and ask questions. I'll be around to explain as much as I can without spoilers, because I don't want them to get spoilers as well. So, yeah, that's intro lore. I'll probably be putting out a video next week or so explaining something else. So if there's anything specific you want to know, just say something somewhere you can find me. And have a good one.